This is worksheet 3.A. We're going to look at inertia and acceleration as we start to look at circular motion. So in this scenario, we're going to try to understand why in certain situations our body feels like it's being pushed in a certain direction. And this really has to do with sort of our brain's sort of confusion when we are placed in non-inertial reference systems. Non-inertial reference systems, remember, are these places where Newton's laws don't work. Non-inertial reference systems are anything where our reference system is accelerating, not moving at a constant velocity. This can apply to accelerations when we're speeding up or slowing down, going in a linear direction, but we'll find it also applies when we are turning. We're changing the direction of our velocity. That is also a change in velocity if we're simply keeping the same speed but moving it in a different direction. So let's look at Angela. Angela is in a stopped car at a traffic light when the light turns green and she accelerates. So we want to sketch and label the vectors for velocity, acceleration, and net force on the car. Well, initially the velocity essentially is 0 because we're at rest, but the acceleration is in this direction. We're accelerating in that direction. So if the car is accelerating in that direction, then obviously the net force has to be in that direction as well. So you've probably experienced this when you start up at a stop sign. Your body feels like you're being pushed. You actually feel like you are being pushed backwards into the seat. And the reason is simply because of Newton's first law. Newton's first law simply says that she was at rest, and in a sense wants to stay at rest. However, she's sitting in a car that's accelerating to the right from this picture. So she needs to accelerate along with it. If she doesn't, obviously she'll end up outside of the car, which doesn't make sense. So she feels pushed backwards because the seat is accelerating forward and the seat is pushing on her or applying a force so that she accelerates too. Her body is in the car. Something has to be applying a force to her. If we're going to examine her, Angela, something has to apply a force to her to make her accelerate. What is that thing that's applying the force? Well, in this case, it's the back of the seat pushing her forward. So not only is the car accelerating, Angela in the car is also accelerating right along with it. That acceleration is caused by a force pushing her forward, so she feels like she is pushed backwards. Her concept of backwards simply is backwards because she is in what she would describe as a non-inertial reference system. The inside of her car is accelerating, but her brain is perceiving it to be constant velocity or no velocity. So in her brain sense, she doesn't understand why that force is being applied to her, why she feels like she's being pulled backwards. Okay, so we'll just kind of label that as a backward feeling. The backward feeling is in the opposite direction of acceleration. So let's look at the opposite case. The opposite case is as she approaches a stop sign, she slams on the brake and we're still moving in this direction, but since we're slowing down, we know that our acceleration must be in the opposite direction of velocity. If our acceleration is in the opposite direction of the movement, then our net force obviously must be in that way as well. Which way do you feel like you're being pushed when you're in a car and you slam on the brakes? You feel like you're being pushed forward. So using the same analysis that we used up here, if I feel like I'm being pushed forward, we know that the car is accelerating backwards. Which way are you in the car, or Angela in the car, accelerating? Obviously, Angela's in the car. She's accelerating right along with the car, or else she'd go out the front window. And so she is accelerating backwards as well. And given that, there must be a force pushing her backwards, and it's probably the seatbelt or something else. So the net force on the car is backwards, as is the net force on Angela. So again, she feels a forward push. Okay, so again, the feeling is in the opposite direction as the acceleration. And again, that feeling comes from this misperception of being in a non-inertial reference system. So finally, as we're going around a corner, I think this is typically obvious as well. We feel like we're being pushed in a particular direction. So our velocity instantaneously has that direction. What we find is that if we are going to change our velocity from that direction to this direction, as we round the curve, we are going to need a force that is in the proper direction to get an acceleration or a change of velocity in that direction. So our acceleration is in that direction, and so we know that our sum of forces must be in that direction as well. And what we find when we're going around a circular path, the sum of forces and the acceleration are always pointed towards the center of the circle. The center of the circle upon which the car is on the path. So what do we feel as we're going around that left-hand curve? We feel like we're being pushed toward the outside of the circle. So we have this strange feeling of being pushed to outside of the circle. Again, it's just a feeling. The car, on the other hand, is accelerating toward the center of the circle. And the net force, obviously, then must be pointed toward the center of the circle as well. So in all three cases, what our body wants to do, our body wants to continue in the direction that it is moving. That's Newton's first law. Or it wants to stay at rest in the first case. But our body needs to accelerate along with the car. So because of this, we feel the forces acting on us to get us to change our velocity, whether it be from zero or from some velocity where we're moving, or simply a change in the direction of that velocity. In all cases, we feel the force, and what are the feeling, if feels like we're being pushed in the opposite direction to which the force is applied.